Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest enemy of your future is not lack of resources, not lack of connections, and not lack of intelligence. It is delay. Many people are not defeated because they are incapable. They are defeated because they keep waiting. Waiting for the perfect time, the perfect condition, the perfect moment, the perfect approval. But purpose was never designed to wait on permission. Purpose was designed to respond to obedience. The graveyard is full of people who were talented, gifted, anointed, and full of ideas, yet they postponed their assignment because they were waiting for everything to be right. I came to announce to you today that perfection is not a requirement for progress. Time does not pause for preparation, and destiny does not knock twice. If you keep waiting for the right moment, you will miss the moment that was right. God never called you when conditions were ideal. He called you when faith was required. The tragedy of life is not death. It is a life that never lived its purpose because it was always waiting for the perfect time is often celebrated as patience. But in reality, it is one of the most sophisticated forms of fear. Fear rarely announces itself openly. It does not always come shouting panic or trembling insecurity. Sometimes fear wears a suit, carries a notebook, and calls itself planning. It says, not now, soon, or when things settle, when I'm more ready, when I have more money, when I have more support. But the truth is, fear delays what faith demands now. Perfect timing is an illusion created by uncertainty, because if you wait until everything is right, you will never move. Life does not operate on ideal conditions. History was never changed by people who waited for guarantees. Every great movement, every breakthrough, every invention, every transformation was born in imperfect circumstances. Fear convinces you that waiting is wisdom, but wisdom acts when it sees purpose, not when it sees comfort. Most people do not fail because they start and quit. They fail because they never start at all. They remain trapped in preparation mode, always learning, always gathering, always observing, but never stepping forward. Preparation is important, but preparation without execution becomes procrastination. And procrastination is not a time problem, it is a belief problem. You do not delay what you truly believe in. When something is urgent enough, you move despite uncertainty. When something matters enough, you act even when you are afraid. Fear tells you that you need more time, but time does not create courage. Courage is created by action. The longer you wait, the more fear grows because fear feeds on imagination. And imagination without action magnifies risk. Waiting for perfect timing is also rooted in the desire for control. People want assurance before obedience. They want to see the whole staircase before taking the first step. But purpose never reveals itself fully in advance. Purpose unfolds as you move. Clarity is not a prerequisite for action. Clarity is a reward for action. Many people say, I'm waiting for clarity, but clarity is waiting for you. It is waiting on the other side of obedience. When you move, vision sharpens. When you act, direction becomes clearer. When you step out, understanding catches up. Those who refuse to move until everything is certain remain stuck in confusion. Not because clarity is unavailable, but because clarity is activated by movement. Fear also disguises itself as humility. People say, I'm not ready yet, when in reality they are afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of failing publicly. But purpose is not protected by hiding. Purpose is refined through exposure. You cannot mature in isolation. You cannot grow in comfort. Growth requires risk, and risk requires courage. The moment you step into your assignment, resistance will appear, but resistance is confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. If you never face opposition, it may be because you never challenged anything. Fear tells you that failure will destroy you, but failure is often the classroom of greatness. It teaches what success cannot teach. It builds resilience, wisdom, and humility. Waiting for the perfect time also reveals a misunderstanding of how life works. Time is neutral. It does not favor anyone. Time does not prepare you. It only passes. You prepare yourself by using time, not by waiting on it. The clock will keep moving whether you act or not. Opportunities expire. Seasons change. People move on. What you delay today may not be available tomorrow. Destiny is seasonal. There are moments when doors are open, and if you hesitate too long, they close not because you were unworthy, but because you were unwilling to move. Fear convinces you that you have unlimited chances, but life often gives windows, not guarantees. Many people are waiting for confidence before they act, but confidence is not a prerequisite, it is a product. Confidence comes from experience, not from thinking. You become confident by doing, not by waiting. The first step is always uncomfortable. The first attempt is always awkward. The first expression of purpose is always imperfect. But imperfection is not a sign to stop, it is proof that you started. Fear wants perfection because perfection delays exposure. But progress requires vulnerability. When you act, you learn. When you learn, you grow. When you grow, you become effective. Waiting for perfect timing is also connected to comparison. People wait because they are watching others. They measure their readiness against someone else's highlight reel. But purpose is personal. Your assignment does not require someone else's approval or progress. You are not late, you are only delayed by hesitation. Comparison steals urgency. It makes you forget that your journey has its own rhythm. Fear says, you're not there yet. But purpose says, move with what you have. What you have is enough to begin, even if it is not enough to finish. You do not need everything to start. You start, and everything comes. The greatest danger of waiting is that it conditions your spirit to accept stagnation. The longer you delay, the more comfortable delay becomes. Waiting becomes a habit. Dreams become theories. Vision becomes conversation. And eventually, you begin to rationalize inactivity. You convince yourself that staying where you are is safer than stepping into uncertainty. But safety is not the goal of life. Fulfillment is. You were not created to merely survive. You were created to contribute. And contribution demands courage. Fear promises protection, but it produces regret. Obedience may be uncomfortable, but regret is permanent. Perfect timing is not something you discover. It is something you create by acting in faith. The moment you move, time aligns with purpose. The moment you decide, resources begin to shift. The moment you step forward, fear loses its authority. Waiting gives fear power. Action takes it away. You will never feel fully ready, but readiness is overrated. Availability is what matters. When you show up, when you begin, when you take responsibility for your gift, life responds. History does not remember those who waited. It remembers those who moved despite fear, despite uncertainty. Despite imperfection, purpose moves on obedience, not on ideal conditions, because purpose was never designed to wait for comfort, convenience, or certainty. Purpose responds to alignment, not atmosphere. When God places an assignment inside a human being, He does not check the economy, He does not consult public opinion, and He does not wait for circumstances to cooperate. Purpose is released when a person decides to obey, even while everything around them looks unprepared. Obedience is the language purpose understands. Conditions speak fear, logic, and limitation. But obedience speaks faith, trust, and authority. That is why so many gifted people remain stagnant, not because they lack ability, but because they are negotiating with conditions instead of submitting to instruction. Ideal conditions are a human invention. They are a mental excuse created to delay responsibility. Nature itself does not wait for ideal conditions. A seed does not ask the soil if it is safe to grow. It does not wait for perfect rain, perfect temperature, or perfect protection. The seed responds to design. When it is planted, growth begins, even in hostile environments. Purpose works the same way. It activates when planted in obedience, not when surrounded by comfort. The environment may be harsh, resources may be limited, and support may be absent, but purpose does not require permission from circumstances to function. Obedience is powerful because it shifts responsibility from the human to the assignment. When you obey, you are no longer trying to control outcomes. You are simply aligning with instruction. Many people want clarity before obedience, but obedience produces clarity. Purpose does not give explanations in advance, it gives direction. Direction is enough to move. Explanation often comes later, when you insist on ideal conditions. What you are really saying is that you want control, you want assurance, you want guarantees. But faith does not operate on guarantees. Faith operates on trust. Obedience is trust in action. The danger of waiting for ideal conditions is that conditions are always changing. There will always be something missing, something uncertain, something unfinished. If you wait until everything is right, you will never move because life is not designed to be perfect. Purpose was designed to function in imperfection. In fact, purpose is often revealed most clearly in pressure. Pressure exposes capacity. Resistance strengthens resolve. Difficulty refines character. If conditions were always ideal, obedience would not be necessary. Anyone can move when it is easy. Obedience matters when it is uncomfortable. Purpose moves when you move. Provision follows obedience, not the other way around. Many people say they will act when they have more resources, but resources are attracted to movement. Momentum invites supply. When you step out, what you need begins to show up, sometimes through people, sometimes through opportunities, sometimes through unexpected channels. But nothing arrives while you are standing still. Obedience creates demand, and demand releases provision. Waiting for ideal conditions reverses this order and keeps people stuck. Obedience also protects purpose from pride. If conditions were perfect, people would take credit for success. But when you move in obedience despite lack, fear, and uncertainty, you recognize that the outcome is not your doing alone. Obedience keeps you dependent on guidance rather than self-confidence. It keeps you listening instead of assuming. Purpose flourishes in humility, not in control. That is why many assignments begin small, hidden, and uncomfortable. They are designed to test obedience before expansion. History proves that purpose never waits for ideal conditions. Leaders emerged in crisis. Innovators were born in scarcity. Movements started in opposition. Change happened when someone obeyed a conviction, not when the environment approved it. Waiting for ideal conditions would have silenced voices that needed to be heard and delayed breakthroughs that generations depended on. Purpose is bigger than comfort. It demands courage. And courage is expressed through obedience. When you obey, you activate timing. Time responds to decision. The moment you decide to move, the clock aligns with your assignment. Delayed obedience is disobedience dressed in patience. Many people say they are waiting on the right time, but the right time is waiting on them. Purpose is not late. People are late. And they are late because they are negotiating with fear instead of submitting to instruction. Obedience sharpens discernment. The more you obey, the clearer your direction becomes. Purpose unfolds in steps, not summaries. You are given the next instruction, not the full map. Those who demand the full picture before moving never take the first step. Those who obey the first instruction receive the second. Purpose rewards movement. Stillness starves it. Action feeds it. Ideal conditions appeal to logic, but purpose transcends logic. Logic asks for evidence. Purpose asks for trust. Logic says wait. Purpose says move. Logic wants obedience. When you choose obedience, you step into alignment with design. Alignment releases power. Power produces impact. Impact confirms purpose. Obedience is not reckless. It is responsive. It is hearing instruction and acting without delay. It is choosing assignment over comfort. It is choosing growth over safety. It is choosing purpose over fear. When you obey, you give purpose permission to operate through you. When you wait for ideal conditions, you withhold that permission. The tragedy is not that people fail while obeying. The tragedy is that people succeed at nothing because they never obeyed anything. Purpose does not require perfection. It requires participation. It does not wait for readiness. It responds to willingness. The moment you obey, purpose comes alive, even if your hands are shaking, even if your resources are few, even if the conditions are unfavorable. Obedience is the trigger. Purpose is the response. Action activates provision, clarity, and confidence because movement is the language of purpose. Purpose does not respond to intention, it responds to execution. You can think, plan, pray, and prepare endlessly, but nothing shifts until you move. Action is the signal that tells life you are serious. The moment you step forward, invisible systems begin to rearrange themselves around your obedience. Doors that were closed begin to loosen. People you never expected begin to appear. Resources you could not access before suddenly become reachable. Not because everything changed, but because you changed position. Provision follows action, not planning. Many people are waiting for provision before they act, but provision is attracted to momentum. You do not receive what you need to start. You receive what you need after you start. When you move, demand is created and demand pulls supply. A stagnant life creates no demand, so nothing is drawn toward it. Action communicates responsibility. It proves that you are willing to carry what you are asking for. Life does not fund hesitation, it funds movement. The moment you commit, support begins to show up in ways you could not have predicted. Clarity is not a gift given in stillness, it is a reward earned in motion. People say they are confused, but often they are simply inactive. Confusion thrives in delay. When you act, confusion loses its power. Each step reveals the next step. Vision sharpens as you move forward. Direction becomes clearer as resistance is encountered. You learn more in one step of action than in years of overthinking. Action exposes what works and what does not. It turns theory into experience. It replaces assumptions with understanding. You do not see the path by staring at it, you see it by walking it. Confidence is born from experience, not affirmation. No amount of positive thinking can replace the confidence that comes from doing. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you build by acting despite fear. The first step is always uncomfortable. The first attempt is always imperfect. But each action deposits evidence into your spirit that you are capable. Confidence grows every time you survive what you once feared. Waiting does not build confidence, it erodes it. The longer you delay, the more intimidating the task becomes. Action shrinks fear. Delay magnifies it. Action also silences doubt. Doubt feeds on imagination, and imagination without movement creates worst-case scenarios. When you act, reality replaces imagination. You stop guessing and start knowing. You stop fearing and start adjusting. Mistakes become feedback instead of failure. Action turns setbacks into lessons. It teaches you how to adapt, refine, and improve. Confidence grows not because everything goes right, but because you learn that you can handle it even when things go wrong. Provision, clarity, and confidence are connected. Provision gives you the tools. Clarity gives you direction. Confidence gives you courage. All three are released by action. Remove action, and the system collapses. This is why so many people feel stuck. They are waiting for one of these to appear before they move, not realizing that movement is what releases them. Action is the key that unlocks the door they have been standing in front of for years. Action also aligns you with timing. Time responds to decision. When you decide and act, time cooperates. Delayed action creates missed windows. Obedient action creates momentum. Momentum multiplies results. One step leads to another, and soon you realize that what once felt impossible now feels manageable. Not because the assignment changed, but because you changed through action. Fear loses authority in the presence of action. Fear survives in delay. It weakens when confronted. Action does not require the absence of fear. It requires the refusal to obey it. Every time you act while afraid, fear loses influence. Confidence rises because you realize fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that growth is happening. Action trains your mind to trust your ability to respond, not your ability to predict. Purpose rewards action because action proves commitment. Purpose does not waste resources on indecision. When you act, you demonstrate readiness to steward what you are asking for. Provision flows to those who are already moving. Clarity increases for those already obeying. Confidence grows in those already engaged. Action is proof of faith. It is belief made visible. Many people want results without responsibility. Action forces responsibility. It places you in the arena where growth happens. It demands accountability, but it also releases power. The power to learn, the power to adjust, the power to rise. Action is not about getting everything right. It is about getting started. Starting changes everything. You do not need to see the whole path to take the next step. You do not need to feel confident to act. You do not need full provision to begin. You need willingness. The moment you move, provision chases you, clarity meets you, and confidence grows within you. Action is the trigger. Everything else is the response.